I'll be inviting the chalice. We like this big flow. Sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of life we share together.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Low Country. My name is Kim Lewis. I'm one of your board members. And this morning I just have a couple of announcements. I want to recognize Joanne Malash's hard work with the season of music on Malthus that ended last night. And I saw her list of the lineup for next season, and it looks awesome. So hopefully we'll see more and more of you there for music on Malthus. Also, I wanted to let those of you who do not know that the paintings around here are from Donna Titus, and I'm assuming they will be coming down shortly. I don't know when. One more week. So if you haven't had a chance to look through the paintings, I would suggest you do. They're awesome. We have coming up next Sunday on Father's Day, the Blessing of the Animals with Pat Job. The details of the service are on the back of your announcement if you can read through those before bringing any of your pets. And I'm going to hope there's no snakes, but I imagine they need love too. So take a look at that. And then after that, on the 23rd, we have Reverend Dr. Neil Jones. And then Clint Taws will be returning at the end of the month to speak with us. And at this time, I'd like to welcome any new visitors. If you are able and willing to stand up and perhaps give us your name, where you're from, we can maybe get to know you a little better. After the service, where we have coffee and snacks, and then after that, we will have a talk-back service where we will reconvene back here in the sanctuary to discuss today's message. So if we have any new visitors on my right side over here, if you're able.
This is probably my best friend in the world, Chris, and she's visiting from Greenville, and we met at the Unitarian Church up there.
Yay! Welcome. I'm starting to think Susan has a lot of friends. Anyone here in the middle section? How about here on my left? Anyone? Okay, well, at this time, we will have Reverend Charlie Tyler with opening words.
So I have been struggling with how to have an opening word about this message. I almost want to bring a caveat about what I'm not. I'm not in any way, shape, or form a grief counselor. I'm not in any way, shape, or form a bereavement counselor. The lessons that I have learned in our support groups. They have been repeated themes that I think some of us should know about. That's really what I want this message to be focused on, are those things that seem common in that process of grief before you start the process of grief. That's what I want to try and do, is offer you some tools and to offer you some expectations of how you might begin to emotionally and mentally prepare yourself for, just so you don't, this doesn't catch you off guard. Ain't none of us getting out of here alive. One of the things that we constantly see is that statement, I was supposed to go first. That's only right half the time. And so being able to be prepared and being able to think it through and to emotionally embrace what's coming to all of us in one way, shape, or form, that's what I hope to accomplish just a little bit today. There are others in this room that I know are far more skilled than I. Others in this room are far more qualified than I. And I would pray that you would give me a measure of grace as I try and offer you some of my insights. Thank you. If you would please, let me see. Am I right? Yeah, take your hymnals in your hands. Stand with me if you will. Hymn number 205. Hymn number 205, Amazing Grace.
The offering is a sacrament of the free church. It's supported by the voluntary generosity of all who join with us. The offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values. generosity.
This is the time we share our joys and concerns. It's our good pleasure to share your joys, and it's our hope that when you have difficult times, we can offer consolation. If you have something to share, come forward, take a stone from the basket, tell us your name and your joy or concern, and then put your stone in the can.
We are. Hi, I'm Diana. I'm back. I went to Australia, New Zealand, and then I got COVID the last 2 days of the trip, and I was in bed for a week. But I'm back. I got a clean bill of health, and I'm very grateful. I hit the 7th continent. Now I can go on my deathbed and not have any regrets about that anyway. So I can move on to other regrets. But anyway, I'm just thrilled to be back. It's just so wonderful to see all my friends here and all the smiling faces. It's just home. So thank you. Whoops.
Hi. I'm Barbara Pavka, and I recently, last Thursday, had hiatal hernia surgery. I think last Sunday they announced that I was feeling pretty miserable, which I was, but most of that I think was because they were medicating me with so much crap. And on the 3rd day I called the office and I said, what is going on? So anyway, within 24 hours of getting me off of most of the medications, I feel human again. So I'm still tired, but those meds, I don't know what they were trying to do to me. They were trying to kill me. But anyway, thank you all for cards and all the best wishes. So thank you much.
Good morning, I'm Rosemary. I want to credit John last night. Before the Rod McDonald performance, he played the most beautiful, complicated rendition of Somewhere Over the Rainbow. It was just fabulous. And so I was just really thrilled to hear that because I love that song. But I've also challenged him, and I want you to join me in this, to do Hallelujah, Leonard Cohen. So we're going to challenge you to do that for the next event. But it was really good, and thank you. You don't get enough credit.
Hello, I'm Anne, and I have a couple of joys. One is that Sarah and John Rich Ortiz are here today and have recently just become members. So we have your name tags for you if you want to come up and get them. And bring Jack. They come to us with Jack, who is 1, and Kara, who is 4, and she's already back in the nursery. But Jack, you can give your parents their name tags. One for Daddy. Yeah, one for you. And also, as new members, we give you a couple of things. They were able to attend some of the Path to Belonging, even with the kids. Charlie and I had a class that had children and a dog that attended this time. So each one gets a UCL mug filled with some goodies. And
Thank you.
Hold on. And I believe we give you each a little welcome.
Oh, thank you.
Welcome to the UU world. Get ready. And we even have certificates, which Lynn should be doing this right now. But I do this with Lynn Nordenberg and Kathleen Kelly, who are co-chair people of our membership committee, and is a big reason for why you're here. So these are for you. Yeah, and these are for,
I think Alice was out of town.
okay, for the others, yeah. So welcome, we're happy to have you. Thank you. And I also wanted to have another joy that that Ethan and Tyler and Reagan have decided to bring their parents back to church this week. So it's really good to see you again. And I understand also one other thing is that I heard from Alessandra that it is her mom's birthday today. So Ashley Trexler is having a birthday, and I think we should sing. So who can lead us? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Ashley. Happy birthday to you.
I put 2 stones. Oh. Okay, I'm gonna just have mine ready.
Hi, my name's Gary. Unfortunately, Sharon and I will not be here next week. Instead, we will be listening to this. I hope this works out. What'd you say? Are you laughing? So that's okay. So that is our granddaughter Brinley, and we can't wait to go up and visit. It has been way too long.
And I put 2 stones in the cairn for the joys and concerns that are unspoken. Now, if you turn to the back of the book, to Affirmation 706, we'll read that together. May the light around us guide our footsteps and hold us fast to the best and most righteous that we see. May the darkness around us nurture our dreams and give us rest so that we may give ourselves to the work of the Lord. Let us seek to remember the wholeness of our lives, the weaving of light and shadow in this great and astonishing dance in which we move.
So, it's been about 6 weeks since my mother died. And a couple of weeks after it happened, I was here, and one of the little girls in our Sunday school came up to me and handed me a note. She told me that she had wrote it herself. So she and I stepped aside, and I opened it, and it said, this is what it said. It said, "Dear Miss Ann, I love you. I wish your mom would not have died." The only thing that I could say at that moment was, "Me too, Maya, me too." And then it was time for our service to begin. We were lighting the chalice, just like we do every Sunday. And I came into the sanctuary where my mother was not in her seat. Right. And where she would not be standing to sing the hymns that she loved so much. And this is when it hit me that this was life going on as it always does after someone dies. Because this is one thing I have learned, that after someone dies, life goes on. Now, most of you know that as well as being our minister, Charlie has said that he's also the chaplain for a local hospice. And in those roles, he's learned some valuable lessons about life and death, which he will be sharing this morning. So with that in mind, I began thinking, as a nurse and a religious educator and a Unitarian Universalist, through the years, I too have learned a few things about life and death. For instance, I was brought up to see and experience death as a healthy part of life. All of death, the preparation for it, the moment of it, the grieving, and the living on after it. As kids, we naturally wondered about what would happen to us after we died, and we openly talked about that in my family. My parents would say, well, no one really has the answer, but the way we see it is that death is the final and total end of our physical existence. Death is the end of our conscious life. And this wasn't presented to us in a morbid way. We saw our grandparents die, we saw our pets die, and we knew that someday we too would be physically gone. And somehow just this knowing that life was going to end for everyone gave us a reason and made us want to live our lives as fully as possible. And we were taught that when it happened to us, when we died, we could live on in the minds and the hearts of those whose lives we had enriched. Charlie will speak this morning about the inevitability of death and how things go best when you are prepared. My mother planned for her death as much as she knew how. And because she and my dad had made all the arrangements ahead of time, her body was donated to science for research as she had wished. And much of her memorial service was a result of things that she had talked about while she was alive. Planning ahead and dealing with the details of all of that was really a gift that my mother gave to our family. And although her death was sudden, she died with dignity, giving me lessons about life and death. Hold on. Right up to the end, she did. Even as she was taking her last breaths, she was showing me that life is precious and fragile, and it's beautiful, and it's impermanent. And as she was reminding me too, that even though the journey from birth to death is not done alone, and even though I was sitting right there beside her, when it is time to leave our life behind and enter into the unknown, it is something that each one of us must do alone. I have learned that death is really the ultimate act of faith. Anyway, I hope that we all can leave this world as gracefully as she did. And I'll end this morning by sharing a poem with you that my mother wrote. She wrote a lot of poems, and a couple of them were here at her memorial service, but this poem she wrote when she was 19 years old, which is a little weird. And I don't know why we didn't include it in her memorial service at some point, but we didn't. So I thought I would read it today, and it's called Funeral Song. And it goes like this. This is my funeral song. Sing it the whole day long. Life is so fierce and so strong. To life I belong. Don't go remembering me. I am the wind and the sea, in the gull, in the star, in the tree. My spirit sails free. Hear my exuberant cry. I care. I love. I still try. Having died, now, no more will I die. Only move nearer the high, only rejoice in the new, finding more truth in the true, slightly shading my infinite view, waiting for you. May we all continue to share our thoughts with one another about life and death. And now, the young people will leave to go to the Sunday school.
Anne, thank you. So give me just a minute to get myself hooked up here and see if we can make this work. It's been a while. David? How's it sound? Okay, good, excellent, thank you. I had wanted to be able to sit down here and have my hands free for this particular message. Just as Ann was talking, my mind was racing back to the first half dozen verses of Ecclesiastes chapter 3, which some of you might remember begins, there's a time for everything under season, a time to live and a time to die. And those times come to us. Your living time is here now. Thank you very much. But we all have our dying time that will be coming. I have been and consider myself a student in classrooms that encourage conversations about the losses that individuals in that classroom have endured. And I have learned some things from these fabulous students. And every Tuesday and every Thursday I sit down with them and we talk about how the week has been. And the constant reoccurring themes is what I wish to share with you. And by saying these themes, I am in no way, shape, or form suggesting that this is your experience, will be your experience, or has been your experience. Because one of the things that we have discovered is grief is everyone's own experience alone. But there are some themes that are reoccurring, and that's what I wish to share with you. There's a piece that came to me in an email from one of our bereavement people who wrote this or who sent this, and I wanted to start with this particular quote because I find it painfully powerful. The author writes, "The death of a spouse or partner is different than other losses in the sense that it literally changes everything in your world going forward. When your spouse dies, the way you eat changes. The way you watch TV changes. Your friend circle changes or disappears entirely. Your family dynamic and your family life changes or disappears entirely. Your financial status changes. Your job situation changes. It affects your self-worth, your self-esteem, your confidence, your rhythms, the way you breathe, your mentality." Your physical body is altered as well. Your hobbies and your interests, your sense of security, your sense of humor, it usually becomes darker. Everything changes. And you are handed a new life that you never asked for and that you didn't particularly want. It is the hardest, most gut-wrenching, horrific, life-altering of things to live with. Now, as I said, this is not something that all of us experience at this level. But I think most of the time, when we talk to those individuals who come to us in that setting of a support group, is we find that those things are common in many of our people. And I, again, want to tell you how privileged I am to sit with these people and learn these lessons because they're absolutely critical to learn. In no way, shape, or form am I going to suggest something that's going to make your grief less or make it easy or take it away. That's not going to happen here. So just kind of settle yourself with that. But begin to realize as well that there's ways to mitigate if you're careful and can think about it. You take some lessons from those who have done this ahead of you. One of the first lessons that I have learned from my teachers is to learn the basics of running your whole house. Let me just let that sit there for a moment. Learn the basics of running your whole house. Not being in control of all of it, not being the master of all of it. By all means, don't do that. And the reason why you should be familiar with your whole house is not because of the financial or the system or the keeping up with the bills, but because if you don't know what bills are coming, after you lose your partner, when those bills come, they will scream at you, "My wife's not here. My husband's not here. I am looking at this piece of paper because my partner is gone." And the grief process comes back again, and with every bill that comes. So I would encourage you, if you're in a good relationship and a good marriage, and you have a lot of support, but if one of you is doing all of something, don't take it, but just sit beside them so that when the time comes, you know where to go. There are some of us who've never wrote a check before. They had no idea how to go about the process of paying their bills. That sounds astounding until you're in the middle of it, and then you realize, oh my goodness, I let him do it all this time. I let her do it all this time. So every time, though, that you can familiarize yourself with what your partner is doing, whether it's the taxes, whether it's the bills, whether it's the car, insurance, fill in the blank, collaborate together. You're going to hear that word a lot. Begin to find out how you can know where things are when the unexpected happens or when the alternate happens. So please be about that process. Talk with your spouse. And if you're the one that's doing all of that, invite that other part of you to sit beside you and say, this is what we do. This is where you can find it. And that will mitigate some of the depth of the loss and the hopelessness and the helplessness that many of our people feel when they get blindsided with that. So that's my first advice, is that you take the time to learn the basics of running your household. This is the time that you will begin to know and understand what happens when the bills come in. And when the bills come in, or the taxes come in, or the insurance come in, or the car, this, that, and the other comes in, it won't be that slap in your face. Oh, that's right. He's gone. She's not here. That's the way in which you begin not to avoid your grief, but to mitigate it just a little bit. The other thing that I tell our people when we spend time together is that your loss may well feel very much like an amputation. And the more I think about that, the more that analogy works in many cases. For that individual that you are part of, and many of the people in the rooms when we gather together have been married for 40, 50, and 60 years. They think each other's thoughts. They finish each other's sentences. They know. So when you get to that point when you lose that individual who has been part of you, when you get to that point, you will feel as if something has been cut off from you. Some of you have perhaps already gone through that. I don't know. If not, maybe some of you will face it sometime in the future. But in that amputation, the reason why that works is because and I use this as an analogy, is that after you have had your right arm amputated, the worst thing you'll have to do after that is learn to write with your left hand. There's nothing more irritating, frustrating, or infuriating than knowing that you have a command of the English language and you can't put it on paper. And that's exactly what starts to happen in many people's lives. Again, not everyone, but in many people's lives, they begin to face that. What it's like to live without. How do I go about the process of living without my right arm? And the other element about that that's still very, very real is that thing called phantom pain. I've never experienced it, of course, but I have listened to and heard the way the medical profession talks about that pain. It's very, very real. It's not there at all. And if that's not a definition of what grief is in your life, that's accurate. Because it's very, very real. It's very, very painful, and you can't find it anywhere. That's a part of what that means to live with that. And I've also found that for the most part, as I observe the way people try and switch hands as they do, is it takes just about the same amount of time to become comfortable with your left hand as you become comfortable with your loss. And those things make sense to me. And so I ask people to think like that. If it's a bad analogy, it's okay. We have more. But I wanted to make sure that you heard that, because in a very real way, post-traumatic stress is a part of the grief process. You'll begin to find yourself thinking oddly about things, or not thinking about anything at all. Sometimes I'm talking with someone and they're going through a process, they can't find their keys, and I laughingly say, have you checked the freezer? There's a term called grief brain or widow's brain, and that's really in that place in which your brain function is scrambled. And and you have to be kind with yourself and gentle with yourself. You have to be able to find ways to move forward slowly in that time, because the traumatic stress is real in your life in those months, in those years. Triggers are everywhere. And by trigger, I'm talking about that thing that is unexpected, that brings a wave of grief and sorrow over you unexpectedly. Some of you may know that hospices, all of them, are supposed to maintain contact with their families for a minimum of 13 months after their patient passes. And we do that pretty well. Most of the time it's through letters, articles, and encouragement from our bereavement coordinator. What I do, of course, is gather people that want to talk about it in their rooms and be able to encourage them with that. But the triggers that we've discovered are completely unexpected. One of our women, who's been walking this walk for a while now, talked about bananas. She hated bananas. He loved them. So when she went into the grocery store shortly after he passed, the bananas brought her to tears. That's an unexpected trigger. The way a dress smells, the way pants smell. There's a woman that I see on a fairly regular basis who is still very fresh. Her loss is very fresh. But when she sits at the breakfast table, she puts 2 boxes of cereal in front of her so she doesn't have to see the empty seat on the other side of the table. All of these triggers are real and strong and powerful. And many of you have gone through them in some way, shape, or form. What chair do I sit in? What chair should I not sit in? How do I ruin his memory or her memory by this behavior or that behavior, or the way in which I live? A couple years ago, we were talking in one of the groups, and I was curious about the process of getting used to sleeping alone in the bed. And I asked them, did you reach out to try and touch your partner and discover that they're gone? And some of them said, absolutely, that was a very common thing that they were missing. And then some of them said, I decided to move over to her side of the bed so I wouldn't have to see her side of the bed empty. Moved over to his side of the bed so I wouldn't have to see his side of the bed empty. How many of you thought of the things that I've said so far will be a part of your life? Some of you have, yeah, some of you have. Some of you not. And that's where I want to be able to speak to that and have you be able to see that, process that, and put that to work in your own life. Oh, there was a lady several years ago. I was talking with her husband, was on our services and was very close to passing. And she talked with me about a moment in another grocery store moment in which she was buying the toilet paper that he preferred and realized that it'd be the last time she would buy that toilet paper. And she had another meltdown in the tissue department. And those are the triggers that come to us. Those are the things that catch us off guard and make us be able to see and understand what's going on around us. So one of the things I would add next is this lesson, is to learn to take your time. Right now, you've got all the time in the world, but learn to take your time and be kind with yourself moving forward. There is no end date. There is no time when it should be done through, past, or moving on. Every one of you will experience your own grief process because of your own personality and the people that you love. That's a unique combination, alone, only. And it will be yours alone when the time comes. Those of you who are walking it now, you already know that. It's yours alone. And that's a part of the way that you begin to be kind with yourself and gentle with yourself. Because there is no end date. There is no end time. And there will be those well-meaning people who will come to you or who have come to you and say, well, it's been 6 months, it's been 9 months, it's been a year. Don't you think you should be past that? Thank them kindly for their well wishes for you and avoid them at all costs. Instead, find those people who will sit quietly with you. Make them your friends. Make them the safe place that you can go to be able to verbalize that you're feeling without condemnation or judgment. Perhaps you've noticed we can be a judgmental lot. It's even worse on this side. So be careful with that and understand that in your own world. Here's the hard one. To begin now the process of knowing who you are without your partner. Let me say that again. Begin the process of knowing who you are without. The reason why that's important is because most of the time, especially after a long, meaningful marriage, you are not Bob and Jan anymore. You are Bob and Jan. You're one word, and you're one person until you're not. And figuring out who you are after that is one of the hardest things that we deal with in our conversations with each other. And I can't give a pill. I can't tell people how to go about doing it. But just begin the process of realizing that this may well be something that you process. Now, I think it's wise with your partner's conversation and collaboration that if you find that the two of you are Bob and Jan, is that the two of you talk about how to be Bob and Jan and how to have some portion of your life that belongs to you alone, your partner alone, that you give permission to each other and with each other to take that journey and make that step, to figure out how it is you can do that. Some of you I know have been through a lot of losses in your life, and you figured those things out ahead of time. Some of you have some difficult times coming, and that's going to be okay, and you'll get through them. But I do want you to know that if you can make that space in your relationship, that you know that there's some part of you that's yours alone, with permission from your partner, that's yours alone, so that when the time comes, you will have that to yourself alone. I have found that to be absolutely critical in the steps forward. Almost impossible to imagine. But I got to tell you that that's something that is so very, very real and so very, very powerful. Start now building that small portion of your life that begins to show you how you can relearn meaning and purpose in your life. That meaning and that purpose is constantly in front of us. We had a fabulous conversation with one of our new folks that came last week, who immediately knew that he had lost his meaning and he had lost his purpose. And then he said, comma, but I'm going to find out. That's where we need to be. I need to find out. And I'm going to find out. And we believe that in that individual. When the time comes, avoid those people who tell you they know how you feel. You do not. They do not. It belongs to you and belongs to you alone. Learn to trust those who will sit with you quietly. And you should also know, if you don't already know, that grief is not in a line. It is not linear. If you want to picture what grief is, picture a bowl of spaghetti. And you'll find yourself woven all throughout the middle of that meal. Picture the waves on the sea. That they come when the winds come and they fade out when the winds die down, but they're always there. And they come unexpectedly. When the time comes. When the time comes. And also know that there is no time frame. Only amnesia will make your grief go away. You're not going to forget. Never, ever, ever forget. Your grief is a constant reminder of your love. Sometimes we say that grief is the price that love pays. And that will be a part of your experience, I think, too. But there isn't any time frame for this, and it will never go away. The grief will change, and you will change, but it's not going to stop. And that's the hard part, because a lot of people feel like you got to get over it and move past it, and that it won't hurt anymore. And if you believe that, you're going to feel a failure every time you get up in the morning and look across the bed or look across the breakfast table, and you see that empty place, and it breaks your heart one more time. So hold on to that tightly. And I think the last piece of advice I would give, heavens to Betsy, this books and books and books and books. People a whole lot smarter than our experience than I am that are worth pursuing. But I think if there's one thing that I would end with, is this one. Spend your time strengthening your relationships, asking for forgiveness, seeking reconciliation. Find the ways to strengthen those relationships so that you know at the end of the day, no regrets. One of the first questions I ask many people, any regrets in your life? And when they smile and shake their head no, I know we're going to be fine. So, whatever that means to you to strengthen your relationships, find the way to begin those conversations and find the way to make yourself stronger. Because the paradox is, it'll make you stronger when you are by yourself. Thank you for your attention. Not all of these messages are as cheerful and as cheery as this one is, but many of you have asked that I speak to this over the years, and so I wanted to try and do that now. In our talk back, those of you that are guests and visitors, in our talk back, we'll gather back in here, and we'll spend time talking about this message, and I would love to hear your questions. I would love to hear some of the things that you have to say. Either I've lost my mind, or I don't understand, or whatever, whatever it is, it's okay. But if you're willing to stay for that, I think it'd be healthy for all of us. Thank you for your attention. We'll continue our worship service now. Thank you, John. That was beautiful. Take your hymnals in your hands, if you would, please, now. And turn with me to hymn number 67. And if you're willing and able to stand, may we sing now together hymn 67.
Oh,
thank you to everyone who made today's service happen. And thank you to our visitors, Chris. Hopefully, maybe we'll see you again, and I'll see some other new faces, and maybe we'll see you again in the future as well. Thank you, Charlie, for sharing your insights of these hard lessons, and of course to Anne for sharing her personal insights. You know, when I first met Donna, I knew she was a special lady, but the more and more stories I hear of how she raised her children and led her family, I'm just still in awe. We miss her dearly. And Charlie, if you have any final remarks.
While you're here, make each moment count. While you're here, breathe deeply. While you're here, love deeply. While you're here, make a difference. Amen? Amen. Thank you.
Shall we stand now to finish the chalice? While we extinguish this light, we still have in our hearts the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment, until we work together again.
check. 1, 2, check, check, check.